Hi again and welcome to the Laughter Crafter. Well, this is part 2 today of the project that I started last week. You may remember, if you saw it, that I did some crackle decorative paint technique on a wooden panel that was actually something that was throwaway in a box of a bookshelf that I bought. Had to put it together, and this piece of wood was just kind of a filler. Instead of cardboard, they put in wood, and it kind of was framed, and I thought, I'm going to use that. So last week I painted it and decorated it with crackle medium, and that's what we did for part 1. And so today I'm bringing you part 2 using that very same piece of crackled wood, and I've done some calligraphy on it as I told you I would. So here it is. Can you see that? It's a little bit difficult to see, to read it, and there's a reason for that. I actually chose this particular style of calligraphy on this because the writing itself, the piece of writing, is from a 11th century Persian poet named OMAR, and this is one stanza from his RUBAIYAT, which is rather famous. You may be familiar with this particular stanza, and it's very enigmatic. It's a little bit cryptic. Some people have wondered what he means by it. So I decided to use this particular type of calligraphy on top of my crackle medium, knowing that it is going to be kind of hard to read it. You really have to take your time and slowly decipher really what I've written over the top of the crackle medium, and that kind of is in keeping with the enigmatic nature of his writing. So I'll hold it up a little bit closer, and you can see that I have used some gold leaf just in little parts, but I'm going to demonstrate this for you, and you're going to see how to do this if you like this particular style of calligraphy, but there are many styles as well. And so here is the limerick that goes with this particular piece. I've inscribed some OMAR KHAYYAM because calligraphy is really my jam. It may be enigmatic, but results are dramatic. If you think that I'm happy, I am. There we go. Okay, so here's the joke that goes with this week's craft. Some people are shocked when they find out I'm an electrician. Okay, let's get on with the craft. So I think I've gathered everything I'm going to need to do this calligraphy on the wooden board that we prepared last week. First thing I'm going to do is draw up some lines with the ruler and a pencil. The paint surface that I finished, the creamy paint that's on top of this wooden panel, is actually glossy, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how well the pencil marks show up on that surface. But anyway, I'll give it a go. Once I've penciled out the lettering, then I'm going to just use a black marker to do the calligraphy rather than a calligraphy pen. I just find that I can have more control with a marker than a calligraphy pen. I do have some metallic calligraphy pens here, and I may or may not choose to come back and do a bit of a shadow around the letters with one of these markers if I think it needs it. The piece of writing that I'm going to do is a beautiful stanza of the RUBAIYAT by OMAR, and it's quite cryptic in its meaning, and so I think that if this calligraphy kind of tends to disappear a little bit amongst the crackle surface of that board that we did last week, I'm okay with that. I actually think it might be okay to require a bit of an effort to decipher what's written on there, because that kind of is in keeping with the cryptic nature of the verse, as I said. The surface of the wooden board with the crackle medium has made the surface quite bumpy, so I'm not exactly sure how easy it's going to be to do the calligraphy. I've got a little piece of cardboard that I might use that to draw some of my lines. Now, if I find that it starts to kind of drag ink across and make a mess and make everything smudgy, then I'll probably just go freehand, but I'll try this and see how I go. I do have this fabulous little battery operated eraser. It just vibrates and I love it. And so if I do get some smudginess, or when I need to take off the pencil marks, this is what I'm going to be using. So, as I said, I may or may not come back with the calligraphy pen and do some shadow work, and I also may do some gold leaf work, sort of to make some of the letters a bit illuminated. This piece of writing was written way back in the 11th century, And so I think some illuminated letters might really be appropriate for this calligraphy. Once I've done everything that I want to do on the surface, then I'm probably going to spray on a fixative so that nothing can smudge after that. Once the fixative's dry, I'll come back and apply a clear varnish. So I think that's everything, and I think we are ready to go. So as we talked about last week, we are going to put calligraphy on this painted surface, this crackle painted wooden panel that we did last week. So if you look closely, you'll see that I have actually marked out in pencil the lettering for the calligraphy, and I'm going to come back later and erase any pencil marks that are left after I've done the calligraphy in black marker. So I have started the calligraphy because I needed to look at the best black marker to use. So you'll see there, I'm going to just do a little bit of the calligraphy here, and as I said last week, this board is really quite large for the area that I have to work in. So I'm just going to do a little bit of calligraphy. I find with some calligraphy styles I can just do it freehand, but this particular one that I've chosen, I've modified it a little bit for just my personal taste. And so I thought in order to fit all the words into the lines correctly, I really needed to mark these words out with a pencil. And you can have a little practice on paper and see if you prefer to do it freehand or prefer to mark it out so that you know it all fits in correctly, and see what you prefer. So I don't know how well this pencil is showing up on this board underneath these lights, but I've made myself a little straight edge piece of cardboard here that I can run the pen along. Some of the parts I'm going to just do freehand, but other parts where I want a nice straight line, I will use this ruler. And I'll do the diagonal for the N. I'm doing an N at the moment if you can't see it. So after I finish this N, I will take this out into my kitchen area, set up the camera and the light. It's a much bigger space for me to work on. I don't usually do my crafty stuff out there because I like to keep my kitchen for, you know, cooking and stuff like that. But for today, in order to be able to really get to this properly and not break my back, I'm going to do it that way, and I'll do the rest of the calligraphy and speed it up, and then you can sort of see it happening, but you don't have to sit for ages watching me. All right? So that's all the lettering roughly done. You may have seen in the fast motion video that I sometimes picked up my battery operated eraser just to rub off any smudges, because it just gets in there so accurately and I don't have to move my hand vigorously. It's just a little vibrating eraser at the end of this gadget, and it's what I'm going to use later to take off any pencil marks. But right now I'm taking off the smudges, because you inevitably, when you're doing this sort of thing, you get pen on your fingers and you're dragging your fingers across the surface and there's a big smudgy right there. So let's get that off. And it just tidies it up. You might be thinking to yourself, well, it's not really that good calligraphy. No excuses, but it was probably the most difficult surface I've ever worked on, because it is so rough, and sometimes the pen I was using just sort of had a mind of its own, and I was trying to draw straight lines and no, didn't want to cooperate. So I've done a pretty good job. Is it a perfect job? Absolutely not. Do I go for perfection? Absolutely not. I've done 2 coats of varnish on top of this, and believe it or not, the varnish is not the last thing to go on this. I've done the varnish and now I'm going to paint on some gold size. You've seen me do this before, but I wanted to do the size after the varnishing. I sometimes find that if you varnish over gold leaf, it can bead a little bit and pull away from the gold leaf because it's metal. So I've done the varnishing, and then the very last thing is going to be putting on this gold size just with a paint brush. You may see that I have marked with pen. Because it's varnish, it's very hard to get pencil to stand out on top of a glossy varnish. So I am going to make sure that this gold size just covers the pen line, so when the gold leaf is glued on top, you won't see that pen line. So I just paint this on, give it about 10 minutes. It goes sort of almost clear and tacky, sort of a bit like touching the back of a sticky note, tacky like that. And that's when it's time to put on the gold leaf. So I'm just making sure that I cover up those pen marks. I don't want any pen marks showing outside the gold leaf when it's placed on. So nudging up over that blue line. Good. I think that's about ready. I'll lift that up so hopefully you can see. It's a bit hard to see, but anyway, it's on there. And I'll come back in a little while, probably 5 or 10 minutes. I'll just keep an eye on it, then I'll put on the gold leaf, and then I'll do the other letters that I've chosen. It's not going to be smothered in gold leaf, just pops of gold leaf here and there. So the size has gone tacky on that letter O there. So now I'm going to take a little piece of gold leaf, and I'm wearing my gloves to protect the leaf from any of the oils on my skin. I always recommend people do that. I've done this, demonstrated this gold leaf before on another project. And I've demonstrated also, shown what happens to the gold leaf if you don't use some protection on your hands. And I might dig that little bowl out and show you. It sort of oxidizes and it goes green. Kind of a green patina on it, a little bit like what's happened to the Statue of Liberty. Anyway, so that's on there. I'm going to just push that in well, because this surface is with the crackle medium. This surface is very bumpy. I don't know how easy that is to see on the camera, but this is very, very bumpy, which made the calligraphy quite difficult to do. Anyway, so I'm pressing it right down so that that gold leaf gets right down into the cracks as well as onto the creamy white surface. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the gold leaf on the other letters as well. So here it is with all the little bits of gold leaf put on. It's really hard to see. You'll have to wait and have a proper look when I hold it up. But anyway, just here and there I've got little splashes of gold leaf, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out. So there you go. What do you think? Do you think you would like to have a go at doing some calligraphy? Lots of different styles to choose from. If you're not quite sure where to start, there's books you can borrow from the library. Lots of demonstrations on YouTube of people doing all sorts of different kinds of calligraphy. You can freehand it, or you can trace it out and do it that way. And I just had lots of fun. I always love doing calligraphy, and this was a lot of fun for me. I really love this piece of writing, and I love the way it's turned out in a quite cryptic sort of a way. I like it. Not sure where I'll hang it because my place is a bit like an art gallery, but there you go. I'll find somewhere for it. All right, I'm going to see you next week with a brand new craft, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoy crafting and laughing, and I'll see you next time. Bye.